Alrighty, DTN, living life. I'm Tex. Wife Dawn, she's back at the cottage. I'm on my way back to the cottage. Just made a successful delivery to Lake Havasu City in Arizona. Let's talk about driving. Driving for someone else. Right off the bat, the first thing that everybody seems to say is when you get in somebody else's vehicle, the owner of that vehicle or the corporation of that vehicle, no, the management, whoever, comes out and says, we want you to treat this vehicle as if it was your own. Years ago, back in the cable company, and I used to train people, and I would tell them the same thing. But one day, we'll make up a name here. We'll say Joe. And Joe said, hey, come on by my house. Let's get something to eat. We're just no more than 2 blocks from it. No, it's lunchtime. Okay, so we both drive over there. Okay, I got my unit and my bucket, and he's got his unit. And we drive over there and pull in and go inside to get something to eat. Screen doors being held on by one screw. It doesn't look like the house has been cleaned in probably since they moved in 10 years prior. So yeah, it sort of gave me a second thought about telling someone to treat something as if it was their own. So I come up with a different way. Sorry for the interruptions. Wife is sending messages. I come up with a different way, and no, I don't have audio turned on while I'm recording. The way I come up with happens to be is that I tell people when you drive for someone else, you treat that vehicle you're driving as if you're going to sell it that day. Because nobody wants to buy a trashed out vehicle. They don't want to buy a vehicle with a bunch of wrappers, get that out right, wrappers inside this floorboard, or gun magazines sitting all across the floorboard, or whatever else other magazines you may have. But yeah. So, take consideration, the way you drive or the way you use somebody else's product, you treat it as if you're going to sell it. So that's the first lesson in driving for someone else. Now that's not a guarantee that you're going to get the vehicle in that condition. Okay? Because I've seen some of these vehicles out there, and I'm like, wow, okay. And to be honest, you could judge me off of mine. Mine is not clean. All right? We kept up with it and kept it clean for the first year and a half. And for the last 6 months, I have not vacuumed it yet. So it definitely needs it. It definitely needs a bath and so forth. Okay, so I'll admit to it. But that doesn't mean how I would treat somebody else's. Okay? I'm getting respected for doing what needs to be done right. So I need to keep that respect. And just to touch base on respect, when people say respect is earned, no, it's automatic. It's earned to keep it. You respect people the minute you meet them. It's what they do afterwards depends on whether or not they keep that respect. Okay? But in either case, the next thing happens to be is that, let's get into it. Are you going to make money driving for someone else? Well, you're going to make more money than if you was to do drive away. Okay? The lowest paid figure in tow away and making 30% of that as your take home will equal up to the same amount of money as if you was doing drive away. Okay? So just note that's where that sits at. All right? Okay? You can make more and drive away, and you can make a hell of a lot more and tow away. But usually the lowest amount, and when I say lowest amount, I know that they recently came out with this $135 on some units, and I don't know what the deal on that is. But the lowest I seen prior to that was a $140. So all my calculations that are in my head and written down are at a $140. Okay, if you figure 30% of a $140, that's 42 cents a mile you're going to make. All right. The average truck driver is making 65 cents at the lowest. So you're that far underneath him. You're more than 20 cents under him or her. I'm sorry, truck drivers. Didn't mean to be gender specific there. There's a lot of hers and there's a lot of hims out there. And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to make that type of money, go become a truck driver. The difference between this job and a truck driver's job, they don't get to name where they go all the time. And when I say all the time, they get to name where they go 10% of the time. And this job, you get to name where you go 90% of the time. Okay? You're not pressured to pick up a load the minute you drop a load. They are. Okay? Now, whether they do it is up to them a lot of times if you're independent. But if you're not, then you do exactly like the dispatcher tells you to do. All right? So that's where you have a little bit different leadway, which is the reason why transport corporations, Bennett, Horizon, Indiana Transport, all of them, they have a revolving door of people because they know that it's up to us to choose whether we drive for them or drive to the destination they give us or drive for the amount of money that they put out there. The calculations. When you go to drive for someone, here's the first thing that really needs to be discussed. And when I drove for someone once, this wasn't discussed, so it wasn't set forth, and this was my mistake as much as theirs, because this is both parties' requirement. They definitely need to discuss this. How many miles do you want that truck to go in a month? Okay? And there's usually no maximum how many miles, but there should be a minimum amount of miles. Okay? If a driver comes across, or the owner comes across, I'll put it that way, the owner comes across and says he wants the truck to go 8,000 miles, well, 8,000 miles, divide that by 15, that's more than 500 miles a day. The average speed that you're going to be driving at is going to be right about between 60 and 70 miles an hour. Well, at 70 miles an hour, including your stops, your scale tickets, all the different things you're going to need to do that day, you're going to average about 58 to 61 58 to 61 miles an hour, okay, is what your average speed's going to end up being. Not saying that's what you're traveling. You may be traveling 70 miles an hour, let's say 68. Oh, wait a minute, let's say 65. Then that way, your true speed, when you calculate your stops, your slowdowns, your traffic, all those different things, is really going to be a lot lower than that. I know some people, they always say, well, we can go 65 miles an hour. You just figure there's 65 miles an hour, and you figure 10 hours, that's 650 miles. Yeah, you can do your math that way and your calculations, and you may be true on paper, in theory, but we all know what happens when you do calculations on paper and live by theory, and then you get into the reality that you have no control over what traffic's going to do. You have no control over how many stops you really will take that day. And somebody come across and tell me that they have control over how many stops they'll do every day, and I'll tell you, you don't know when your bowel movement's going to come across and say, oh, you ate something that I don't like, and I'm going to make your ass stop. And you ain't stopping for 5 minutes. You're going to stop for 15 minutes. You're going to sit on the toilet. Okay? Let's be real. All right. But in that case, you got to do the calculations that you are going to travel somewhere between 58 and 61 miles per hour. So at 58 miles per hour, 10 hours, that's 580. Okay? After talking to several different people and different companies, I have learned that the average turn-in for the day is usually between 500 and 550. That's the average. They've got people like me and my wife, we turn in 350 to 400. When I'm by myself, I'm between 450 to 500. If I had a vehicle that carried more fuel, then I would probably equal up to the 500 a little bit better. Okay? So that's where the difference is at. Now, very true, if I drive for somebody, they've got to take consideration I'm driving with my wife three out of 5 times. So therefore, that means 3 out of 5 times I'm going to travel about 450 miles, 400 to 450 miles in that day, and that's it. So I might not hit that top or that minimum that they want if they come across and say they want this many miles. Okay, 8,000 miles. If you figure 500 miles at 15 days, that's 7,500. Okay, so 7,500 miles in a month is the goal point, I would say. The minimum should be about 6,000. So if you figured 450 at 15 days, I think it's just a little over 6,000. If you go by when you go to rent a truck from Enterprise or something like that, their minimum per month is 6,000. Okay, so note that's how the agreement should be between driver and owner. How many miles do you want this vehicle to go in a month? Okay. Now, the driver can come across and say, how many miles do you want this vehicle to go? Or the driver can come right in and say, look, I'm planning on driving about 5,500 miles. Yay or nay? You do the calculations. All right, so let's just take it off of 6,000 miles. Let's take it off of Enterprise at 6,000. Minimum 6,000 miles in a month. Well, if you figure at the lowest rate, which is what I was doing, was about $1.40, then your high rate, average high rate, is about $1.90. Okay, and then your median, that not your middle, but your median that people sit in happens to be usually about $1.63. Okay, so if you was to take your $1.40 at 6,000 miles, that's going to give you about $8,400. All right, if you did the 7,500, that'd be 10,500. Now, if you're doing the 30% of that, and let's touch base on that 30% real quick. Yeah, I'm going to digress here. The split between people, owner and driver, are 30, 70, 6, 35, 55, No, 35, 65. Yeah. Yeah, 30, 70, 35, 65, 40, 60. And somebody said they made 45% when they were doing it. I questioned that. When I was standing there with the person, I said, oh, okay. All right. They were very adamant. I got to make 45%. There ain't no way I go below that. I don't, talking to owners, I have not heard that. But in either case. Now, let me put it real simple. If it's me, I'm going to say, I'm going to do 70-30. I'm not CDL. I'm less than 5 years old and doing transport. I have more than 20 years experience of driving across America. Okay? But as far as doing transport, I'm and literally doing a mobile home, a RV transport, I have zero experience in, with the exception of what we've been doing since we started this. Okay? So that's where I come across and say, I agree to 30%. Now, I had one person told me that he would be willing to do me for 25%. And I was like, yeah, you can keep dreaming. Because the rest of the industry's at 30%, and that's where I'm going to stick to it. All right? I'm sorry that they're lowering the rates of the units, but 30% is where it's going to stay. And here's how I look at this. Every dollar I make, the owner should make $1 too. Okay? Meaning if I make $100, the owner should make $100. Now, if that $100 is $75 in the gas tank, in their fuel tank, and $25 in their hand, then so be it. But we'll get into the fuel tank here in a moment. The point of 30, 70 gives the owner the capabilities of making 40% towards the vehicle. That's his payments, that's his insurance, that's the insurance for the bill of lading, that's everything that needs to be done. That's 40% that should go to that. And if the driver understands that and understands how fuel economy goes, then that should be fine. There should be no arguments whatsoever. Now, if you take out that new Timberwolf 32-footer or 40-footer, whatever it is, and it's the 2-story that goes a total of freaking 13 feet, you're not going to get good gas mileage, okay? Your average is going to be somewhere between 5 and 7. 7 at the best. Depending on your vehicle, depending on how good you kept up with the maintenance of it, you should be able to hit 7. Now, you get into those headwinds that are coming across the plains of Oklahoma and upper Texas and things like that, you may end up with, or Missouri, you may end up with it dropping down to 6. But then when you get into where there's no plains, you may end up going up to 7.7 or 7.8. Okay? So that's the thing. But that's the thing, that covers money right there, the percentages. That's something you need to discuss with the owner. As I said, hey, we'll do 70-30 for the first 6 months or a year. If you're happy with me, I'm happy with you, then we'll look into moving up 5%. Okay? If not, then we'll stay at 70-30. But it will be an open conversation, and we'll decide how we feel at that time. But that's the way it should be. Okay? So, with that being said, back onto the dollar amount. Like I was pointing out, $1.40, 30% of $1.40 is 42 cents a mile. Okay, so if you was to drive 6,000 miles, you're looking at $2,520 miles. $2,520 for the month. Not very much. Depends on how much you need to make a living. If you was to drive the 7,500 miles, you'd be looking at $3,100. Not very much. Okay. Now, if we drop down to, or we go up to the high dollar amount, so you would be sitting with $1.90, and $1.90 at 30% of that would be 57 cents. So 57 cents would equal up to $3,400 in a 6,000 mile month. Okay, which gave you an extra $900 above what the other one was. At the high end, 7,500 miles, you'd be looking at $4,200. So you're looking at almost a $1,100 increase from the one before. So that gives you a difference between what you're looking at, okay, at the 30%. Not a lot of money, but at the same time, it actually becomes a little bit more than what you would have made in giving somebody leeway to get past the truck up here. Gives you a little bit more lead. It gives you a little bit more than what you would make and drive away. So there you go. That's what you're looking at as far as driving somebody else's unit as money. Fuel wise, note, just because the 70% side's paying for the fuel does not mean that you just get to waste the fuel and run it hard. That could be something well stated within the agreement, that if the owner of the vehicle says, well, I know this thing usually does somewhere around 14 miles to the gallon, you drive it for the first month, you realize, hey, I'm nowhere close to getting 14 miles to the gallon, I'm only getting 10. Could be the way you're driving. Okay? So that's where you got to throw open-ended questions to say, how did you get it to 14? What did you do when driving into headwinds? What did you do when driving on mountainsides and so forth, hills and things like that? Once again, one of the things that I'm prominent of doing happens to be is I don't use cruise control in mountains. I don't use cruise control to get up to my speed. I get up to my speed on a gradual base, and through the mountains, I only allow the RPMs to go to 50%. So, and now if it's a diesel, it'd probably be a little bit less than that. But I know in gas engines, it's 50%. That way you're not burning up the transmission, which is tearing up and making you use excessive fuel. The point of it is that know the truck, get to know the truck. Now, very true, the owner may come across and say the sweet spot in this thing is 66 miles an hour. Well, go ahead and try 66 miles an hour. Then again, under your driving condition or way, you might find out that 68 miles an hour is the ideal. Wait a minute, 65. Yes, I heard 65. May be the proper way. Okay? The thing of it is that you've got to look at fuel efficiency. Even though you're not the one paying for the fuel, you must look at fuel efficiency, because if the owner is not making a dime and they're spending it all in fuel and maintenance, then you're not going to be a driver. Okay? So that's the way you got to look at these things. Once again, Truck's got to stay as if you're ready to sell it every day. Next thing happens to be is, pay attention to the maintenance. Fuel, maintenance, all those things. Okay? You may come across and find Joe's Mechanic Shop will do an oil change and fuel filter change, and they charge $200 less than the other ones. Well, what's the owner say? Does the owner want to give a chance to some mechanic shop, or do they want to go back to the dealer, or do they want to go to someone they've been going to? Okay? These are things you've got to be willing to understand. This is their truck. You're just a driver. You need to make sure you stay efficient and cleanliness to make sure that the owner finds the utmost respect for you, because you're showing the utmost respect for them. Okay? So, there's the points as far as becoming a driver. Driving somebody else's vehicle. Now, just to throw out there, the average amount, the median spot, like I was talking about, was $1.63. Is what the median is. That's the average that gets paid out from Bennett, Indiana Transport, Horizon, from conversations I've had with different people at different locations. Okay? And so you're looking at $1.63 as your median. Now, very true, we're still in the process of our recession and all that good stuff, and until this election crap gets over with and Trump takes office. Yes, I'm a Trump fan. Trump fan, Trump supporter, whatever way you want to look at it. The thing of it is that $1.63 was what the average was. I don't know what it is, what the median is. The median may be a little bit lower. It might be down to $1.53. I don't think it's that low, but yet it may be. But $1.63, just note that 30% of that is 49 cents. So at 6,000 miles, you're looking at $2,900. And at 7,500 miles, you're looking at $3,600. Okay? $1.63 is going to turn $12,000 at 7,500 miles, and $1.63 will turn $9,000 at 6,000 miles. Okay? So even though the big numbers sound really great, your take home will be $2,900 or $3,600. That would be your average. If that's what you're looking to do, then that's what you're looking to make. Now, this is calculated, like I said, off the how many miles per day, and I always try to do 15 days a month, because there's going to be dead days that you're going to be traveling without anything, and you got to have those days in there. Now, there are sometimes people line up 8 different transports all at one time, and it takes them the entire month, and they just now made a shitload of money for that month, but then they went and took 10 to 15 days off the next month to go spend 2 weeks with their family. So, when you get done and you do the addition of the year, and you find out, wow, I only drove 15 days every month. I know some of the months I was busting ass. No, you took off too many days on these others. So just know that's one of those little scenarios. Okay? Everybody always likes to calculate off the minimum. Now, you got to calculate the average and the median off of what the length is. So, a car is not calculated by the first day you buy it. You spent $60,000 for that brand new truck, okay, or that used truck on the first day, and are you going to make $60,000? No, you're going to figure over time, and that's how all additions should be, Okay? All your calculations. So when you talk to people and they talk about, oh, it's $1.35 right now, what seems to be the problem? Well, let's see here. It's $1.35 right this moment, but what's been the average, and what do you think the prediction is going to be for the average coming up? Okay? So there you go. Peace, love, and jelly beans, people. I've taken up plenty of your time. I've tried to cover quite a bit of things. I know there's a lot of information in there. Y'all take it for how you want. And yes, I am looking to drive for somebody. Like I said, I've had a couple people approach me about it, but I have not liked what they approached. So I'm still holding out for someone that understands that, yes, me and my wife travel as a couple. We go the same directions. So yes, I need the passenger seat to be there for her to sit in whenever we're headed back, or we're in process of dropping hers off and she's coming to ride with me from that. And then we pick up 1, 2, or 3 going back, going different spots and so forth, and then head back, whichever. But that's the point, okay? My wife is with me and we travel together. So that's what becomes the hiccup for me. Whereas a lot of single people out there, they're out there just to bust. I'm out there to make money, and I want the owner to make money too. If the owner's not making money, then there's no point in me driving for him. That's the point, okay? And, oh, one more thing about owners. If you think that yelling at the driver is going to get your point across, remember, the driver has a choice, okay? He can walk away and go find another job, go find someone else to drive for. Try talking with them in a calm, cool, collective voice, and ask open-ended questions, because you learn more and you get more done than you do by dictating and micromanaging. You can throw out there what you expect, but don't throw it out there as a dictation type term. All right, that's it. Like, dislike, like again. Peace, love, and jelly beans, people. Notifications bell and subscribe. Thank you.